Greetings. I'm Brandon Jones from Jegna.org. I am a psychotherapist, professor, and author, and you're tuning into the healing journey of Black life. The healing journey of Black life through the Kemetic Wisdom School. And what we're going to talk a little bit about is the history of psychotherapy and mental health. We're going to talk about how that pertains to us and our own Black lives. We're going to talk about a particular strategy that I call post-traumatic growth that highlights the resiliency, the power, wisdom, and also the skills and the genius that we have as Black folks. Even though we've been through so much, we're still here, and that means something. And how do we tap in and utilize that to move forward in life? So definitely get a pen and a pad. Definitely be prepared to write down questions, write down your thoughts, write down things that you want to check out later and do further research in. So this is just going to be a snippet to dive into these things, to just give some context. You know, my big thing is about expanding worldviews and shifting lenses. Expanding worldviews and shifting lenses. We all have a worldview. We all have a perspective on the world. You do, I do, everyone we know does. But one of the limitations that we have as a people is that sometimes we are afraid to have our worldviews challenged. We are afraid to have our worldviews challenged because there's so much unknown information out there. Sometimes we might run into something that forces us to make change happen. And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm sharing constructive information to shift your worldview, not to challenge you and demean you or talk down to you. No, not at all. But to challenge you to open up your worldview, to expand yourself, to improve yourself so that you can evolve as a person and we can evolve as a people. So I want to thank you for tuning in to this course, and I hope that this course makes a huge difference in your life and opens up, again, your worldview and shifts your lenses. So let's get into the content. So, the healing journey of Black life. What is healing? You know, in my world, the psychology world, the human service world, this world of healing and helping people, there's a lot of talk about healing. Well, really, there's more talk about being healed. And what that means is that people need to heal from the pain that they've experienced, heal from the adversity that they experience, heal from those bad memories, those bad times. But one of the things that I feel like that ends up doing is trapping people and setting people up to never reach a place of satisfaction, because being healed means that you need to reach a destination. You need to get to this point where it doesn't hurt anymore, where the pain is not there, so you can move forward. But unfortunately, we go through so many different things where the pain is still there. It might be different. It might not be as severe. It might not affect us as bad as it has in the past, but the pain is still there. So what I tend to do, and what I encourage you to do, is to not think of coming to a place of healed. Come to a place of healing and understand that this journey is a process. Healing is a journey. It is not a destination. We cannot think that the things that have gone on from our ancestors are just going to we need to get over and move forward. Absolutely not. There are people in your family, there are people in my family that just disappeared in the middle of the night. There have been men that have been beaten, boys that have been beaten for the accusation of, whistling at a white woman or staring at a white woman too long. That pain doesn't go away. Unfortunately, that pain actually gets transcended from one generation to the next. That pain of being sexually molested, that pain of being beaten over the back with a broom when you were a 9-year-old child, that pain of seeing your mother being choked with a dog chain, that pain of having parents who may have been drug addicts, that pain of going into foster care, right? That pain of having to feed your brothers and sisters when you're 9 years old, you're the oldest, and you have to be the one to feed them. You have to be the responsible party at 9, 10, and 11 years old. That type of trauma does not just go away. It might manifest as you get older, but it doesn't just go away. And that's what I try to address with the clients I work with the programs that I develop, and with the people that I tend to help, is understanding that this is a journey. It just changes over time. Might not be as painful as it used to be, but you need to understand that just because you're working on yourself doesn't mean it goes away, but you want to make sure it's not impacting your life in a negative way so you can still have peace, balance, justice, and joy. Peace, balance, justice, and joy. That's the goal. So what is healing, right? Healing is a consistent process of efforts to create peace, balance, and justice. And as I just added, joy, right? A consistent process of efforts. That means that these are actions. These are things that you have to do. You can't just assume that things are going to get better with time. And I know we have a connotation in our community that has pushed this: time heals old wounds. But that's not true. We know it's not true because we have so many people that have hurt in our families, in our communities, and even maybe even yourself from something that happened years ago. Something happened 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Hell, last month. The pain is still there. But you have to do something to get, to move forward in life, to deal and address that pain, to get into this healing place, a consistent process of efforts to create peace, balance, and justice. Keep that in mind as we talk through the rest of today's content. Why do we need healing? We need healing because because life is hard. And if anybody knows this, Black folks know this. Life is hard. This is not easy. We've not had the easiest road into this American life, this life on the United States soils. ADOS, Black folks, we have not had the easiest time in these shores. And life is hard. And that's why healing is necessary, because there's no guarantee in life that you will not face challenges. We all face challenges. We all face adversity. However, some people's adversity is different than others. Sometimes your adversity comes from a systemic place like racism, white supremacy. Sometimes your challenges come from difficult family dynamics. Sometimes your challenges come from playing on sports teams. Sometimes your challenges come from trying to figure out how do you identify amongst your peers. We all face challenges, and that's why healing is important, because we all respond to these things differently. There is no guarantee that things will be okay. There's no guarantee for it, especially in this world that we live in, where things can go bad one after another. There's no guarantee that things will go well. And that's why it's important to heal, because you need to, one, be honest about things will not always be okay, and understand that you need to go through this healing process, this healing journey as you move forward. What is trauma? You heard me mention this a moment ago. What is trauma? What is this thing? You hear a lot about it, you see it, but more than anything, I know you feel it. If you're Black, you feel trauma. I often say, and I often get a lot of pushback, that if you're Black, you're born with trauma. and our culture has been developed around trauma, because we've had to survive under a system that has put everything against us. A very anti-Black racist system that we've been a part of has pushed everything against us. I mean, everything has come against us, and all that's traumatic. All that has traumatic stress. It leads to heightened levels of cortisol in our bodies. And it just pushes us, and it just pushes us, and it just pushes us to the point where we have bad health, bad social outcomes, a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion in the community. And it just manifests due to the things that we've been through. But trauma is a deep emotional wound. Trauma is a deep, emotional wound. And trauma is closely connected to toxic stress and toxic environments. When you are in toxic environments, you have toxic stress. When you have toxic stress, it usually leads to trauma or a traumatic response. And what ends up happening here is this deep emotional wound looks different for different people. Some of us have been in trauma so long that the trauma is normal. You know, I have kids in the programs that I run, that I've developed and manage, that they think it's normal for someone to cuss them out. These are 13-year-olds. They expect to be cussed out by adults. And I understand that's traumatic, that they're not getting the level of respect. Actually, they see it as respect if you don't cuss them out. Because if you're not cussing them out and you're not talking to them, then you don't care about them. You're not paying them attention. Hell, some of them believe you don't love them because they've been taught that tough love is the only version of love that they're supposed to get. That is trauma. That is a deep emotional wound. Because when they're with someone later on in life, a partner of theirs, a significant others of theirs, who might not curse them out, they might not know how to adjust to that person because they're not used to that type of compassion. Or they seek out a person who will cuss them out, who will argue with them, who will fight them, because that's what they're used to, that's all they know, and that's their comfort zone. And unfortunately, trauma will keep us in our comfort zone, even when our comfort zone is uncomfortable. All right? We will stay there, and it's very dangerous. Trauma is also a couple of other things. Trauma is something that happens too quick. Trauma is something that happens too often. And trauma is something that happens too soon, right? Too quick, too often, too soon. We have these three things: too quick, too often, too soon, right? Trauma is all three of these things. So what do I mean by too quick, right? You can just use a simple example. You're at a bus stop, you're waiting on the bus. Maybe you're headed home after school, after work, right? Next thing you know, people just start fighting. The fight turns in bloody because someone got stabbed. Boom! Happens within 2 minutes. Fight breaks out. Next thing you know, someone's stabbed, laid on the ground, screaming, blood everywhere. That's quick. Trauma. Boom. It could be a car accident, right? Be a sucker punch. It could be a lot of different things. But that's quick. Something that just happens and you feel it, right? It startles you. It could be traumatic. Trauma is something that happens too often. Okay? This is like living in a place. Let's say you live in an apartment building, right? You live in an apartment building and your upstairs neighbors are arguing. They do it every day. Argue, argue, argue. But on the weekends, the arguments turn into domestic situations. Now you hear fighting and screaming, and the police have to get called. And this happens almost every weekend. Too often. You're in that environment, boom, argument, 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 argument. Friday comes, fight, 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 police. Quiet over the weekend. Monday comes, argument, 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 fight, 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 fight. Police come. It's quiet, halfway through Saturday, all day on Sunday, back to Monday, right? These things that just happen just too often, just keeps coming, just keeps happening, right? That's traumatic. We don't think of it like that, but think about how much stress that is to hear your neighbors arguing, right? To hear those sirens coming through. It's almost like clockwork. You can almost predict it. That's trauma. That's trauma. Trauma, something happens too soon. I just talked about an example. You got kids, 9, 10 years old. Parents too busy, or they might be high, or they might just be gone, not present. You're 10 years old, and you have to take care of your 7-year-old sister and your 3-year-old brother. And you're changing diapers and fixing meals, making ramen noodles for everyone. You're 10. You're 10 years old. You're doing these things. Now I understand latchkey kids and the time that we have been in where kids had to be a little bit more independent, but we have children right now in our community that are beyond independence. They're parents. They're fulfilling parental roles for their family. Hell, I've had clients who have been 11, 12, 13 years old. They're taking care of the parent or the grandmother. It's like, damn, right? That's trauma. That's trauma. We don't see it as trauma because no one's put it in the context of mental and emotional health. But those are traumatic situations. Think about how much stress that puts on a 10-year-old. This person's in the fifth grade. He's 10 years old, he's in the fifth grade. Fifth graders can barely blow their nose, keep their nose clean, right? Wipe their butt, they behinds well. But now you're responsible for taking care of adults and little kids. Now, a lot of us have been in these situations. I remember when I was younger, I was the oldest of three boys. So I had two younger brothers. My mom told me she told all of us really at a very young age. I had to be about 7, 8 years old. My mom told me this. She sat us down one day and she said, look, it's just us. And your dad ain't gonna be here all the time. And y'all like to eat, so you gotta learn how to cook. I'm 7 years old. She said, you a boy? All three of you are boys. You like to eat, you better figure it out. She ain't teach us how to cook nothing. We just figured it out. So we was making nachos in the microwave, ramen noodles damn near every day because she had to do what? She had to work. She was trying to figure things out. She was never strung out on drugs or anything like that. But when my dad wasn't around, my stepfather, when he wasn't around, it was on us because she was busy. She had to work overnights. She gone by, she get us from school, 6 o'clock comes, she get ready to go to work. She's gone by 7:30. Here I am, man of the house, 7 years old, trauma. 8 years old, trauma. Taking care of two little boys. We peeing in the bed. We don't even know what's going on because of trauma. But it looks like culture when no intervention happens.